As you know, every civilization has a kind of hierarchy of art, what it considers to be the most important. For example, in Christianity, it was really the iconic painting, the painting of Christ and the Virgin, and then the statuary that went with the painting. In Islam, the supreme sacred art is really calligraphy and architecture, as far as the plastic arts are concerned. And both of these have to do with the Word of God, in the same way that the icon has to do with, in Christianity, with Christ as the Word of God. In Islam, of course, calligraphy began from the very beginning in association with the Quran. It's Quranic calligraphy that gradually disseminated throughout society for everyday usage of calligraphy. But in the Muslim mind, the significance of calligraphy as the central high art of Islam has always remained. Of course, calligraphy is used in order to be able to read the content of what has been written. There's no doubt about that. But in Islamic art, the Arabic Persian calligraphy, which was later on adopted by the Turks and many other Islamic nations, and used still today in Urdu, Pashto, Kurdish, besides Arabic and Persian, this calligraphy has a symbolic quality to it. And that's why we've had certain treatises written on the symbolism by great Sufis. For example, Abdul Karim al-Jili, the famous 14th century Sufi, has a treatise on the symbolism of Alef and Ba. So the Sheikh al-Alawi, the great Algerian Shadali Sheikh, and many others. Ibn Arabi speaks about it. Let me just give you an example. Of course, calligraphy is composed of a point extended in different directions. So it begins with the point of the pen. In the same way that all of space is generated by the single geometric point, all letters are generated by this single point. From the letters are generated words, which ultimately are kalimat al-ulya, the supreme words of God, and represent the Quranic words. And therefore you might say that the dot symbolizes the principle of all existence, in the same way that the point symbolizes the presence of all of space. And the very enigmatic saying attributed to Ali ibn Abi Talib, who's considered by all classical Islamic calligraphers to be the founder of Islamic calligraphy, which itself is very symbolic, whether it's historically provable or not is irrelevant. That a figure was the spiritual person that he was, and the founder of so many Sufi orders and the inner teachings of Islam after the Prophet, is considered to be the founder of calligraphy. And he said the whole of the Quran is contained in the Surah Al-Fatiha. And the Surah Al-Fatiha is contained in Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is contained in Ba. And that Ba is contained in the dot under the Ba, Nokta Ba. And I'm that dot. It's a remarkable saying. Is identifying his inner reality with that which is the source of all the multiplicity of the words of God that we see in the Quran. Then in addition to the symbols of the point, Arabic Persian calligraphy, of course, make use of vertical and horizontal lines. The first two letters contain the principles of all the other letters, because the Aleph is a vertical line, the Ba is a horizontal line, and that where they meet, that point, in fact, is that point under the Ba. The Aleph symbolizing transcendence, direct relation between the divine and this world, and the Ba, creation, the feminine aspect. So you might say the Aleph is the masculine aspect, the Ba is the feminine aspect. And you see its correspondence in the beautiful mosques that we see in the horizon of the city, in the minarets, which are like the Aleph, and the dome, the gentle dome, which is like the Ba, and they symbolize the virile or the masculine principle on the one hand, and the feminine gentle principle on the other hand. And then in addition to this, you have the flow, this remarkable flow of Arabic alphabet calligraphy, which is very different from Latin or the Devanagari. Each civilization has its own type of alphabet. I'm not competent even to talk about the symbols of Japanese alphabet or Indian alphabet. They have their own different flow. In Arabic and Persian, and before in Turkey the alphabet was changed when you used the Ottoman Turkish, when you start to write There's a remarkable flow which connects the letters and the words together. And that's why even after the change of alphabet, many of your older statesmen, when they wanted to write a quick note, the United Nations or something like that, I remember Fuad Kuprulu used to do that all the time. And over the centuries, they developed many schools of calligraphy in which the symbolism of not only the vertical and horizontal, but also the rhythm and the flow of these letters came out. You begin with the Kufic, which still remains as sort of the primordial form of Islamic calligraphy, in which each word is sort of closed unto itself, like a bud that has not opened up yet. And then over the centuries, you have the other styles of Muhaqqaq, Nasr, Thuluth, Shikaste, Tuqra, and so forth and so on, which are all, in a sense, the opening up of the various possibilities within calligraphy. The actual flow of the word, which is horizontal, and then the lines going up and down, let's say with a lam or kaf, or coming down with a meme or something like that, is a wonderful example of creation itself, which flows horizontally. But this horizontality, like in time, going from morning to afternoon, every day to day, is always punctuated by verticality, by relation with the vertical dimension, with the divine. So, and then there, of course, there's symbolism of individual letters of the Arabic alphabet. Each letter has a particular life of its own. Each letter is a being. Not only words are being of the Quran, the letters are being. I'll give you just one example because it's a very extensive field. You have the famous verse of the Quran, Noon mal qalam. The letter Noon, N, in English, is written in Arabic as a semicircle with a dot in the middle of it. There it is. It's like the ink pot. And the qalam is the pen, which you put in the ink pot. And that one amount of ink that burns like the point in the middle of the noon. And from this, all things are written. So the letter Noon symbolizes all the possibilities of existence. And there have been many treatises written on the symbolism of Noon, its physical symbol, not only its abjad and jaf symbol and other mathematical symbols. I will not get into just the letters. Finally, it's very important to state that calligraphy in Islam is a very high art, which is not simply ad hoc. It's an art that is based on very exact geometry, a sacred geometry. An educated person in the old days, right here in Istanbul, even if he were not a great calligrapher, Turkey has produced some of the greatest calligraphers in Islamic civilization. God has given this art to many great Turkish calligraphers. But suppose you had a general who didn't know write calligraphy well, but everybody had learned through his eyes what good calligraphy is. And even now, many people sense it. But it's because of the geometry, of the proportions. If the Aleph, let's say, goes up 4 units of that particular unit that you've chosen, then the Wav cannot have 7 units and drag down like this. And there's a remarkable integration of the proportions of the letters. And that's where the real art of calligraphy is. To be able to write in such a way that the ratio of various letters and words that you are using is a ratio that is harmonic, melodic, and that is pleasing to the eye. Finally, because of the remarkable possibilities of Arabic Persian calligraphy, you've had all kinds of styles, some of which are very heraldic and vertical and used for mosques and so forth, some which are extremely intimate and like the Shikaste style, which the Turks and the Persians use, the Arabs did not use. Or some of them are very round, like ta'liq, that's ta'liq. Some of them are very vertical and geometric, like certain forms of nasr. So we have all kinds of different possibilities, and it's here that the human personality, creativity came in. Some people have accused Islamic art in general, especially calligraphy, there's no creativity in it. That, of course, is total nonsense. When you see the calligraphy of a Bawab, of someone like that, he's using the geometry. But look at the remarkable art. All sacred art is based on sacred geometry. And in Islamic geometry, Islamic calligraphy, this geometry is very, very significant. And in the old days when calligraphy was taught as a child, I studied calligraphy for years with traditional masters. What we first had to learn was the geometry, really, before learning how to draw a line. Finally, the last point I want to say is that calligraphy has to do with discipline of the soul. It needs a certain amount of peace, tranquility within. It needs an itmi'nan, as the Quranic term, that is peace with God. Allah bidhikrullah tatma'innul qulub. Is it not by the remembrance of God that the hearts are pacified? It needs that. If you're an agitated being inside, you cannot be a good calligrapher. And then it needs the control of the breath. When you draw a long sheen or scene, you cannot go, you have to control your breath, as the Japanese Zen calligraphers do. So it really has to do with an inner control. In today's language, it requires a form of yoga, control of your hand, of your concentration, of your mind, of your breathing, and therefore it's a total art. And it's one of the greatest arts of Islamic civilization, and in no civilization has calligraphy played an important role as it has in Islamic civilization. I don't want to say there are no other civilization where it has played an important role. In Chinese and Japanese civilizations, calligraphy is very important, but they also have a lot of painting and sculpture and other forms of art, whereas in Islam, calligraphy does everything. It is for us like the iconic paintings of Christ for Christians, or as well as landscape paintings in China. And it's an art that is absolutely essential to preserve. Nevertheless, in the Arab world, calligraphy suffered a great deal. It was only in Iran and Turkey that great calligraphy was preserved in the early part of the 20th century. Gradually, the second part of the 20th century, more and more, especially in Egypt, Syria, Yemen, these countries, and in the Maghrebi style in Morocco, people began to pay attention to Islamic calligraphy in the Arab world. But I believe that as far as this art is concerned, the great calligraphers remain essentially the Turks and the Persians. And I don't want to denigrate all the other great calligraphers in Pakistan, elsewhere, but it's an art which is central to us, and I think we must be able to preserve it well, to appreciate it, and also not to simply play with it, as many of our modern painters do, who are not calligraphers. They can even draw an Elif, but they use these as design in something else, that is dissolving the artistic genius of Islamic calligraphy in a Western style painting, which pleases the eye, but it's not really part and parcel of our art.